Sanskrit is thousands of years old as a language, with a few languages having similarities. One such language is Lithuanian. Last month, the Embassy of Lithuania held an event at the India International Center to showcase the similarities of Lithuanian with the Sanskrit language. Lithuania, a country of about 2.8 million people, is a place where India has recently opened an embassy as well. Today, to discuss cultural, economic, and larger Lithuanian and Indian ties, we have Her Excellency Ambassador Diana Mickevičienė with us. Thank you, ma'am, for being here.
My pleasure, thank you.
Ma'am, to start off with, my first question is this question of Sanskrit, Lithuanian, and the larger cultural relationship that the two countries share. And, the Honorable Prime Minister mentioned last month that you are learning Sanskrit as an ambassador here. So I just wanted to, for the benefit of our viewers, to understand, the history of these cultural ties and the linguistic ties.
Yeah, that's an excellent question and a very favorite question of mine, which I'm very happy to answer. So yes, it's been an established fact that the Lithuanian language, being a living language, which means we speak it at home, we speak it in Lithuania, is perhaps the closest sister language to Sanskrit, which, as you rightly pointed out, is thousands of years old. How come? It's a most intriguing question of my stint in India, and actually more than that, because I have studied Sanskrit at the university many years ago. I am keeping up with this. I'm learning Hindi, and I'm asking my Hindi teacher to give me the most Sanskritized Hindi that she can, so that I can also practice and remember Sanskrit words. But the intriguing fact is that as a native Lithuanian speaker, I can definitely testify to a very close link, meaning that there are not only common words, which are plenty, but grammatical structure is quite similar. So when we, change nouns, when we conjugate verbs, it's striking how similar the structure is, which points to a deeper connection beyond the borrowing the words, because words can travel, languages can borrow words. And Lithuania in particular has been a hub for Indology studies in the Baltic states. We have, a group of faculty, professors who study India, including Sanskrit. So we have, in fact, felt that this is a connection that deserves attention of a state that needs to be studied, and probably, very helpful to warm people's hearts to realize that we are connected much more than we are aware just looking at the map, where Lithuania and India are separated by a good 5,000 kilometers. So it started actually earlier when at the initiative of this embassy, the small dictionary of a coffee table type was published by by the Institute of Lithuanian Language, in which select 108 identical words from Lithuanian and Sanskrit were identified and described linguistically in a very proper academic manner. So you have 107 words, which is not an exclusive list, because there are many more. It's just that the scholars chose this particular connection. It really pleased and warmed the people's hearts, and Prime Minister Modi was also gifted this dictionary by my Minister of Foreign Affairs last year, and he was, of course, very happy and acknowledged that work. So what we did later on, we had painted a wall of street art in Delhi. One school, Harcourt Butler School, and Mandir Marg has a wall in which this linguistic connection is also depicted by an artist whom we brought this March of this year. So the roadshow of lectures on linguistic connections between Sanskrit and Lithuanian is the next step, which involved bringing our Sanskrit scholar, who is also a scholar of Latin language, another classical ancient language of Europe, and a native speaker of Lithuanian language, like all of us in Lithuania. So he gave his series of lectures. Even I myself was surprised at certain things I didn't know, that even the name of our capital city, Vilnius, has a root which is I mean, it could fit into this dictionary. Even the small river where I grew up in a small town in Lithuania has a very Sanskritic name, which is Sesartis, which is Sisarti, to flow in Sanskrit. While in Lithuanian language, you need to really look into its etymology. So it's striking, it's understudied, it's not appreciated enough. And what we would like to do is to have a joint research on this particular subject, which both sides could support. Scholars from both sides could join and would have a much bigger publication of probably like 1,007 sacred words which indicate to that connection.
Right, and this tie between Lithuania and India, when we move it to say the economic sphere, it's been growing. If I remember correctly, between 2021 and 2022, it had hit about $500 million of trade. Just last month, you were in Bengaluru inaugurating Teltonica's new office, and I think they have about 40 employees across 3 cities, Pune being another city. So there is some interaction economically, but during your tenure here, how do you see the growth of Indian-Lithuanian economic partnership, and where is the potential for this? Have we reached a potential, or has it been suboptimal till date? So how do you see the economic ties?
Right, I'm sure, and everybody is sure, that the potential has not been utilized enough. And even our trade volumes are really not that impressive. We should work for much bigger numbers. But I think the relationship should go much beyond trade. And those happy occasions of inaugurating offices of Lithuanian companies are, of course, a big joy to me. But they also point out to beyond the trade relationship. So this particular company called Teltonika, I've inaugurated 3 offices of them already. So only in Bangalore they have 40 people. There are many more, and they are eyeing a much bigger expansion in India. They are into Internet of Things, so they are in telematics, they are in e-health, and even in the solar charging stations for vehicles. So all the very promising areas of today and also of tomorrow of our economies. So with the digitalization, the pace of digitalization in India, we see a lot of potential of them coming and offering something that India needs and they also need. So it's a very, it's a relationship where there is no asker or giver, but a very equal, very mutually comfortable and profitable relationship. If you ask me about the future, I think our future is high tech. Our future is definitely technologies, high-tech engineering. The same company has been assembling their networking and telematics device in India already. They are eyeing India very, very seriously, also as a hub for the whole region. India has naturally emerged as a center of at least a sub-region of Asia, but probably even beyond that. So what I would try to do also is to initiate more, research, more technology-related cooperation, bringing more delegations from universities focused on high-tech research in where we are good and you are good, because the areas of complementarity are plenty. We are especially good, for example, in lasers and photovoltaic. We are one of the very few countries in Europe that have retained solar technologies. We have, emerged as a fintech #1 after UK left EU. We are #1 in EU. Startups, biotech has been growing like crazy in Lithuania by double digits, annually. And India is so strong in biotech. So we have started that already. We have started facilitating the trips from our specialists and experts and scholars. And that's, I think, my role, because then it's for the businesses and for the scholars to take it up and find the complementarities where this will become almost an automatic, because the future is definitely in high tech.
Yes, ma'am. And just recently, I think over the last 2 weeks, there was the convention of Lithuanian ambassadors in Vilnius, where I think you were there present as well. Just from a geopolitical standpoint, I know that earlier this year, Lithuania had released its Indo-Pacific strategy, where it spoke highly of India and the democratic relationship and ties. But since then, when you were in Lithuania, has there been any sort of, forward movement in the terms of how Lithuania sees India geopolitically, and especially given the larger situations we have, be it Russia, Ukraine, or Israel, Hamas? So, taking stock of that geopolitically, where does Lithuania and India go forward?
Well, yes, you rightly said we had our annual Ambassadors Convention. It is a second Ambassadors of Lithuania meeting in the context of a war in our region, of Russian war against Ukraine. So it definitely is not a normal time for us. The war is only 500 kilometers away. So naturally, the main priority of we heard from all of our leaders, and we met with all Lithuanian leaders, the president, the speaker of the parliament, and the prime minister. The main priority and the main instruction we got is, in fact, national security, and it is a challenging time to speak about it. Also, we very much see this war as not Russia against Ukraine, but rather Russia against a European map, in which we are on the borders of that map, where we are in the first line. So to us, our national security interest to make sure that Ukraine wins and survives, and that's gonna be a priority number one. Now, you have also rightly mentioned the Indo-Pacific strategy was released by Lithuanian government last June. So it's a very important, geopolitical statement of a country which doesn't have a presence in the Indo-Pacific as such, physical presence. I mean, doesn't have any colonial past also, but we take it as a positive stance, because we think that in today's interconnected world, no matter where you are, things really touch you when they happen even thousands of kilometers away, and it's very important to behave again, as per rules. So India stands out as the biggest democracy of the world. It stands as a country that has behaved as per rules. It is, a country we think has a role to play, a very important role in upholding, international rules. And it's very important to engage with India more than usual, and much more for us, because we have traditionally been far away and very shy in this region. So far, of course, several months have elapsed. I'm very happy to mention that both President and Prime Minister and the Speaker have stressed the importance of Indo-Pacific strategy. So we have standing instructions to, be actively involved, and I'm very happy to be talking about it. We are currently preparing the action plan, so that strategy does not remain a paper strategy or just a talking strategy, but a strategy of actions. We are very much a newcomer in the region. We have only very recently established embassies in Korea, in Singapore. We are expanding, in Australia. So of course we totally understand that, many first steps have to be taken by us. But to me, it's a pleasure to have all the, support from my leaders to speak and engage with Indian partners of all questions of mutual relevance, including this war of Russia against Ukraine, including the issues in Asia that India is facing, and I think we need to really intensify those exchanges.
Right, and talking about intensification of exchanges, Lithuania being a member of the European Union, it's interesting to note India, I think, has been in negotiations with the European Union for a free trade agreement or some sort of economic agreement since at least 2007, to the best of my knowledge. That as a member of the European Union and the larger European community, what is it that you see as an issue or issues that are stopping greater sort of cooperation and creation of this sort of economic interdependence between, say, the European Union and India, or greater trade ties, right? Because it's been about 16, almost 17 years now, and people are questioning whether there is any chance for this larger movement between EU and India in that sense. So where do you see this, ma'am?
Well, we definitely see the potential and the need for both sides to have this agreement. It's been negotiated right for very long. It's been stopped also on several occasions. So the newest sort of renewal of negotiation is not that long. I think the main issue is the complexity. It's definitely the most difficult trade negotiation in the world, because with, of course, India being a very big country, very advanced in some sectors, but also very conscious of the need to, safeguard the interests of, all layers of Indian economy. But on the other side, EU is, it's not one mandate. EU's mandate is 27 mandates, and it's very difficult for us to negotiate it internally. So once it is negotiated, it's very difficult to, to go away from the mandate. That's why it's simply very, very complex. We need to make sure that, it's a very inclusive one. It has all the features of a modern agreement where sustainability is reflected, and that's what EU has been very keen to, and in fact mandated by our rules, to make sure that every agreement is signed is a modern one with implications for generations to come. But nobody doubts the need and interest for that, and I guess on both sides the momentum has been very high. So the negotiations are on. India is also negotiating on several fronts. So I understand that on both sides there are also various internal considerations to be made. But I'm very optimistic. I have followed that relationship for over a decade, and I have never seen such a motivation and such a political will, which is, I think, the most important thing. So I'm sure that this will be done, and we need to be patiently, drilling into a further process. Now, if you speak about again, Europe is of course a very, very large. It's a single trading, space. So it has to also accommodate several interests in the country. But I'm very happy to see that India is taking relationship with Europe, European Union, very, very seriously, and has been working very actively on, especially on the pilot areas like Trade and Technology Council. It shows to a very unprecedented trust and also mutual interest that needs to be pursued to tackle the modern challenges, but also to tap the modern opportunities that come in critical infrastructure and in all the next generation technologies.
Right, and just, talking about the Indo-Pacific, I just want to pivot a little bit towards India's eastern neighbor, China. And Lithuania as a country has faced the ire of China, at least since 2021, when I think Taiwan was allowed to open a trade representative office. And at that point, I think Your Excellency was in Beijing as the ambassador. What do you see? And recently something similar happened with another member of the Baltics, where China has threatened to remove its diplomats because of this question of Taiwan. So from your experience, ma'am, and Lithuania's experience of taking a stand, a sovereign stand with regards to China, where do you see this relationship going? And in the larger context of China and the European Union being such large trade partners as well, and these conversations of de-risking, needing to de-risk from China. So placing Lithuania in the center and then the larger European context, how do you see this relationship?
Well, I think it's very important to have rules also on economic relations and trade. And what we had faced from China is a clear case of economic coercion, where the allegedly political concerns were exploited to pile up a very massive pressure in all areas, in fact, but economic and trade is one of the very visible ones, where our businesses had been boycotted and we had been removed for a brief while even from the Chinese customs database. So the case of China's economic coercion against Lithuania is still on at WTO. It's progressing, it's in the panel. But beyond that, I think we unwillingly probably became a sort of a wake-up moment for major economies of the world, including EU single market, which stood actually unblinkingly besides us and other economies, and I think it made the world wonder of where are the limits of pressure that can be exerted. What we had defended, yeah, you have said it was the Taiwanese economic non-diplomatic office that had been opened in Lithuania. We had been pressurized not to allow any sort of office at all. We decided to stand by because we felt this was a very, arbitrary application of a very, distorted version of this one China policy that was, pressurized on us. So we stood by the principle of basically defending our sovereign decision. Because over 70 such offices exist in the world, and somehow one or the other country is being asked to do much more. Why? And as a country, well, we might be small, but we are very sensitive whenever our sovereignty is compromised. So we will stand by. And what has been shown after Lithuania has been pressurized is that international community can unite on certain principles and support the country in focus. This time it was Lithuania, but neither we were the first to face economic coercion from China, nor we are the last. So definitely it's the defense of the principles of trade and WTO that are being defended, with us being a pointy case. It's important, it's relevant to everybody, and then it also, from there it flows another important lesson that we have to learn. It's the over-dependency from one single source on whatever. Then we have seen the same issue with Russia when it started the war. It's your economic sovereignty, which I think is a principle very dear to India, that is at stake. So you have to really diversify. And part of, if you have read our Indo-Pacific strategy, is about diversifying from unreliable or difficult dominating partners to a range of friends which are predictable, which act as per rules. So that's what we are doing, and I think we have a very good support of all our friends in not just Europe, but all over the world, but including also a full understanding of the situation in Europe. And if I may just mention one extra thing, one thing I would really like to be, to register my happiness and the happiness of my country is India's recent initiative to look at us as a region of Nordic Baltic, economies and countries. So next week, at the initiative of Indian Ministry of External Affairs, we are having the India Nordic Baltic Business Conclave, where we will have political representatives of all the Nordic Baltic 8, but also business delegation, which will lead us to a very strategic, areas of discussion, including high-tech that I mentioned, because this is a cohesive region united by not just the Baltic Sea and a cultural identity, but a very clear orientation to the high-tech. So we look forward to bringing our companies here and presenting what I had already mentioned, with companies working in a very advanced areas where we could have that complementarity. So definitely we look forward to tapping the opportunities from this dialogue as well.
Right. Once again, ma'am, thank you so much for this conversation. There you have it on India-Lithuanian ties, the future of India with the European Union, the Indo-Pacific strategy. Saying that, tune into ThePrint for more.